Welcome to Show Me Something Wrong,
where each episode one of us chooses a movie to watch that the other hasn't seen. The movie is often obscure, usually odd, and always wrong.
I'm Guy.
I'm Dave, and today I've chosen the movie, and it's the criminally underseen Australian film The Bucks Party, directed by Steve Jodrell and released in 1978.
Yeah.
Alright, so I'm pretty excited because this is our first Australian film.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's quite nuts.
I want to know about, what is your experience with Australian movies? Because obviously I've seen a shitload being an Australian.
You know what?
What have you seen?
I couldn't even fucking tell you. I don't even know what I've seen.
Well, you've seen my film. That's an Australian film.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. I've seen Cat Sick Blues. What else does your country produce?
Have you seen Wake-In-Fright?
Nope.
Okay, we're going to talk about
There's a lot of
that
Australian actors, isn't there?
Yeah, that's true.
Like Guy Pearce.
Yeah.
He's Australian. People keep calling me him. But I'm trying to think of an actual Australian production shot in Australia with the Aussie cast that I've seen, and nothing is coming to mind.
Mad Max.
Oh,
You've seen Mad Max.
I've seen
right?
Mad Max.
There
I've seen all three. No, I've seen all four. Wait, does the fourth one count? Is that Australia?
Yeah, that's still Australia.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mad Max. Oh, that was great.
There you go. So you've seen Mad Max.
I've seen all of them then. Yeah. I've seen all
Have
the
you
Australian
seen...
films.
what are some other classics? Have you seen Muriel's Wedding?
No. I'm just trying to think of Mad Max quotes now.
Have you seen Strictly Ballroom?
No. Is that good?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. But yeah, Australia has an interesting history of film, but I think maybe the peak was perhaps the 70s.
Right.
We were producing a lot of amazing stuff at that time, and this film is from that time period. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of Wake-In-Fright before?
No.
Okay, so we won't do it for the podcast because it's not obscure enough. But,
right.
But maybe we should.
Oh,
I don't know. But basically, it's essentially a horror movie about beer.
Oh god, that sounds terrible.
Truly amazing. It's one of my favorite films of all time. It's basically about this
all time.
Yeah. No, seriously, it's amazing. It's the best Australian film ever made.
Wow.
And it's not directed by an Australian. It's by a Canadian.
Does that count then?
It still counts. It's a fully Australian film. But yeah, I think oftentimes Australians get very uncomfortable about our image, if you know what I mean. I think a lot of countries do. So often the best films about Australia are not by Australians. So
do they really poke at the image then? Do they really?
Yeah, I mean, it's just very brutally honest. So the film Wake-In-Fright is about a teacher who's working... Basically, in Australia, when you become a teacher, you have to teach at a school, kind of a rural school.
Right.
So it's this sort of well brought up, kind of rich-ish kind of guy who's teaching out in a rural school. And then he finally gets to go back home to Sydney for the holidays. But he makes the mistake of stopping in this like little town on the way back, and he gets trapped there, basically.
Right.
He loses all his money and gets stuck there. And everyone is just constantly drinking beer.
Right.
And it's full on. It's so intense. Donald Pleasance is in it.
Right.
And does the best Australian accent.
Okay.
I've heard a non-Australian do. The whole film is basically killing them with kindness kind of thing that Australians have, where it's like, come on, mate, have another beer. Come on, why won't you have another beer? Like that kind of thing. And I think it would be a perfect double bill with this film that we're talking about today, The Bucks Party. So I wanted to tell you how I came to see this film.
Yeah, because I had never heard of it. It seems like it's so obscure that it's not even on anyone's radar. I can't imagine it would have ever had a release. So please tell me how you know about it, because there's a lot of things that are just boggling my mind about this film.
It is very obscure outside of, I guess, 1978 when it actually screens. I don't think many people know this film. But basically how I came to see it was one of my closest friends, Matthew Revere, who did the score for Cat Sick Blues, and is now a very successful artist.
Oh.
You could follow him on Instagram, Paper Crisis.
Paper Crisis?
Yeah.
All right.
He doesn't need any of our listeners, the two people that listen to this, to follow his to join his 50k followers or something on Instagram. But yeah, he used to work at a library,
right?
And the director of this film, The Bucks Party, his daughter was doing work experience at the library.
Right.
And they got talking.
Is this a recent thing, or is
this is maybe like 7 years ago. This is when I was still living in Australia.
Right.
And they got talking, and he realized that her father was Steve Jodrell, who is an absolute legend,
right?
Especially Australian TV. But he made a film called Shame from 1988, which is a real like classic of Australian cinema, and has a lot of similar themes to this film as well. But my friend Matt ended up meeting Steve Jodrell through his daughter, and I don't know how it even came up, but basically Steve was talking about this film, The Bucks Party, and had it on VHS and lent it to Matt, and Matt got permission from him to digitize it just for himself so he could watch it. And of course Matt watched it and was like, Dave is going to love this, and invited me over to see it. And it blew my mind that this isn't more widely seen, because it's amazing. Like, it's such an amazing and crazy film.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you can say about this film. Yeah, it is bizarre. Yeah. I'm really interested in the production of this film, how it came to get made, and if you have any great tidbits, so you want to save them for the end. But I feel like I've got loads of questions that I want to ask you.
I think we can scatter it throughout it. And before doing this episode, I really wanted to add more context to the film, because there's so little about this film online, because it is so obscure. So I reached out to Matt and checked if he still had Steve's contact. He didn't. So I was like, okay, I guess we can't add that context. But then I'm like, you know what? I'll just, like, his name, Steve Jodrell. It's not a very common last name. So I'll just do a search on Facebook and searched for him, found him, sent him a message, and he got back to me really quickly. And I said, I have a few questions about the film, and sent them through. And he's like, oh, they're quite detailed questions. Maybe we should just talk.
Right.
So we set up a Skype interview.
That's mad. And can I just jump in? It must be so fucking wild for him, because this was made in 77, right? And now in 2022, some guy randomly messaged you on Facebook about this film that you made decades earlier.
And especially because this is not the film that he's famous for as well. Like mostly he would be talking about Shame,
right?
Or his TV work as well. So, it must have been very weird to specifically get interviewed just about this film.
Yeah, the film that no one else has ever seen.
But yeah, he was...
I bet that made his day as well.
Yeah, he was so nice and just incredibly open to sharing stuff about this film. So I think throughout this episode, we're going to talk about the production, and we can splice in a few clips from that interview. Also, I wanted to add one... This is more for like anyone from Australia listening to this. So I knew Steve Jodrell from his film Shame, but I thought I'd check his IMDb to see what else he had made. And he has directed so much Australian TV.
Right.
And I shit you not, like 90% of my favorite childhood shows were directed by him.
No way.
I don't think you would know any of them.
Probably not.
But
let's hear him anyway.
But he directed basically all the best episodes of this show called Round the Twist. So, do you might know it?
That aired in England, actually.
It was popular in the UK as well, right?
Oh, awesome.
So, anyone my age in Australia, it's their favourite childhood show. Guarantee you.
Just to double check, is it the same round that had the theme song that is like, have you ever felt like this? That's the one, right?
Oh, we should splice that in.
Oh, shit, who did that?
Have you ever felt like this? Have strange things happen? Are you going round the twist?
Yeah, I think he did a bunch of episodes of that, and I checked which episodes. So I'm like, oh, these are all the best episodes.
Oh, brilliant.
So that like blew my mind. And yeah, when I was talking to him, when I interviewed him, I brought that up, and he said almost all, like everyone he talks to, when they see he directed Round the Twist, they're like, oh my God, Round the Twist, amazing. So yeah, he was a big part of, I think, any kind of 90s Australian kid, maybe even British kids, their childhood. So yeah, really incredible career that this guy has had. Before we get into the film though, I wanted to ask you about bucks parties, because I didn't know that this was an Australian term.
Yeah, when you said we're watching a film called Bucks Party, I had no idea what it was about. What the fuck is a bucks party?
What do you call it?
In England, we called it a stag party.
Okay, a stag party. And in America, just a bachelor party?
Is that it?
I
Maybe,
guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
They
So
say
yeah,
that,
in
don't they?
Australia,
Yeah.
it's called a bucks.
Right,
Bucks party.
Is there an Australian thing for the wife side of things? The bride?
Hen's night?
Oh, we say hen party. So stag party, a hen party.
Yeah.
Stag night, hen night, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the same.
I was keen to know, like, what's your experience with bucks parties or stag do's? Have you ever been to any before?
You know, I've not been to like an official one kind of thing. It's more just been like, oh, my mate's getting married, let's just get slaughtered, and we just go out, and then normally like as you'd imagine, there's a stripper involved, and everyone gets drunk, and we go out and do stupid stuff to each other.
Stupid stuff to each other.
It's just a bunch of boys being idiots whilst being drunk. So it's probably very similar in a way.
Yeah. So it's not quite as extreme as what happens in this film, that's for sure.
No, not in my experience anyway. I've never been to an actual one. I'd like to go to an actual stag party.
I've been to a handful in Australia, and obviously not to the degree that like this film, which we'll get into later, but even just for me, like what you described sounds like what a bucks party is in Australia these days. But even that experience for me was like deeply uncomfortable, because I'm not don't know if you've noticed, but I'm not a very macho masculine person. So going to the strippers and stuff like that, I just hate it. And I hate like that kind of, I don't know.
That rowdy, boyish. Yeah.
I really don't get into that. So perhaps that's why this film really spoke to me, because it really shows how nightmarish that experience is.
Yeah, no, but I think like with you, myself and my group of friends as well, we're not really that kind of like really boisterous, loud, like drink and go out kind of guys. Like we're all pretty much low key, and we kind of like to just sit in the living room and drink tea. And stuff. So yeah, that whole like go to a strip club and sniff cocaine off a girl's bum, it's not the most appealing thing.
It's my worst nightmare.
But I think that's almost, as far as the definition of a stag party goes, it's kind of what a lot of people do.
Yeah. I remember going to a bucks party for one of my good friends, and we went to the strippers, and it was just super uncomfortable the whole time. But I was watching another group, like another bucks party group, and the like groom. I don't know, I guess all this stuff is normal at strippers, so this is probably not an amazing story, but I just like found it so intense how it's all about humiliation, which is what this film is about in a lot of scenes, and it still happens now. So I watched this other stag party group. The groom got brought up on the stage, and the stripper stripped him off basically to his undies, and then covered him with shaving cream on his chest and then set it on fire.
Fuck.
And I was just watching this and going, and all his friends are just laughing and just at his utter humiliation in front of a large crowd of people. I'm like, how does anyone enjoy this? It's a nightmare.
That's wild. But it's kind of like, I mean, I might be jumping forward a little bit, but the line that appears in this film as well is like, oh, the bride is just the bride. These are the friends. This is the night he's going to remember for the rest of his life. And to an extent, that is true. Like,
totally.
they humiliate the groom down to nothing. To that he will never forget this night. And that is kind of the whole purpose of it. Give him like a final send-off.
Yeah. It's intense. Yeah, we can definitely get into that in more detail later as well.
No, I never saw anyone get their chest set on fire. Does shaving foam catch fire like that?
I guess so, yeah. I think that's what it was, but it was just really intense.
I know what I'm bringing to my next stag party.
All right, I want to give you a bit of background on the making of this film.
Please do.
Well.
Please, I'm very curious.
Because it is quite unusual. It's only 38 minutes or so. So it's not feature length. The film was shot in 10 days.
Right.
Quite a long shoot for a short film, I would say. I don't know. I guess maybe it's 38 minutes. That kind of works out. But
I guess they had to do all the ADR as well. Does that all
well,
count?
We'll get into that.
Oh, that's another thing. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
So yeah, it was shot over 10 days over Christmas and New Year's of 76 to 77. And this was Steve Jodrell's first film. And at the time, he was a lecturer at Perth, Western Australia University. And he got really, excited about the idea of making a film at that time and applied for funding from the Australian Film Commission.
Wow.
And they gave him 12 grand, which at the time would be quite a lot.
Yeah. Jesus. That's pretty damn good.
And that was to fund the double head stage of the production. So back then, it was shot separately, like sound and vision was shot on two separate things. So it was funded to that point. So basically the production part, not the post-production. So they shot the film. We'll get into that in more detail as well. But then when it was completed, like the shooting was completed, he showed a kind of, I guess, like unfinished cut to the assessor from the Australian Film Commission, who was absolutely, in the words of Steve Jodrell, visibly shocked.
The assessor was sent over to view the double head and recommend whether the commission should invest in more money into taking the project to optical. I don't think the assessor was very acquainted with the topic of the film because he was visibly shocked after he'd finished watching it, and said, I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was along the lines of, we do not want to encourage this kind of Australian film. Now, this was about the time that Basil McKenzie was around and Alvin Purple and stuff like that. And I suspect this, I have no evidence for this, but I suspect the Film Commission was trying to create a new image for itself and didn't want to have these Australian kind of shows. Anyway, whatever it was, he hated it. And I was told that subsequently that they were not going to fund me to completion.
So it's kind of amazing that this film even exists because at this point he shelved it and was like, oh, well, I guess I'm like not a filmmaker. They hated my movie. That's it. Like, it's done.
What was the actual purpose of making this film? Was it purely just because he wanted to make a film? Because, like you mentioned before, the runtime, it's a very odd runtime. And I don't know what it's like in Australia, but in England, a 40-minute film is classed as a feature length, which is really short. But it's like 35, 36, 37.
It's an unusual length.
It's too long for a short film. It doesn't quite meet the feature-length film. So I wondered, like, what was the purpose? Or was it, like, purposely made at this odd runtime?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know why in particular he made it this length and not a feature.
Maybe he just wasn't really concerned about the dynamics of it. Maybe he just had this story that he wanted to make and it happened to be that length. Yeah.
And the actual screening process of this, like how it was screened and where it was screened, is really interesting. I think we should save it to the end though, because it's quite fascinating.
Right.
But basically, so he was stuck with this like unfinished film essentially. That he couldn't put together without extra money because he just had the sound and vision separate. And yeah, he put it aside, but then one of his colleagues was like, no, you need to finish this film.
Had it not been for a colleague of mine who was very enthusiastic about the project and bullied me into completing it, that it would never have been finished. I had to take out a mortgage on my house. I think it was about $3,000 or $4,000 that I had to raise to complete the project.
And yeah, hired a composer and came up with that really amazing end sequence of the marriage stills, which we could talk about later as well. And yeah, he managed to finish it then. And it had its premiere in 1978 at the Perth Institute of Film and Television's cinema.
Hey.
And then after that, it has a really interesting journey, which I think we should talk about at the end.
Yeah. Let's get into it. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So one other thing before we dive into the film, I wanted to say we're going to obviously spoil this film a lot, as we always do. We go into a lot of detail, but this is one you can actually watch before you listen to this episode. So if you haven't seen this, you can go to the NFSA website, the National Film and Sound Archives of Australia, on their website. And if you search for The Bucks Party, you should be able to find this.
Oh, it's actually online.
Yeah. And hopefully by the time this episode comes out, we can post some links to that as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it is possible to watch this, and I really recommend watching it before we talk about it. Yeah. All right, should we get into the film?
Let's get into it. So we start off, we're kind of in like what the Australian outback or countryside or something, and we see these cars kind of come charging down the hill, almost in a drag race-esque style, with this really kind of happy flutes and trumpets music playing. And it straight from the get-go, it's like, oh, we're in for a fun time.
Yeah.
And it kind of sets the mood like, oh, this is going to be a fun film.
Yeah.
And that mood, it just keeps on with that pace. It's always just like fun. It's always fun, but what we kind of see gradually gets more and more disturbing.
Yeah.
But it keeps up that really fun, happy tempo. And that opening shot of them charging down the hill was just like, it's like, I was really like pumped with it. I was like, this is going to be so much fun. And it just carried on. And we kind of arrived to this like quarry. It's like a dried up quarry, right?
Yeah.
And there we get the opening speech from this kind of almost like alpha douche jock kind of character.
It behoves upon me on this sad occasion to say a few words about our soon-to-be dear departed mate, Kenny.
So that alpha male, Ron, is
Ron,
his name.
yeah.
And this is, again, for Australian listeners, will blow their fucking minds.
Right.
But this guy is played by someone called Bevan Lee.
Okay.
So Bevan Lee, this is obviously very early in his career, but he is an extremely well-known TV creator.
Right.
And if you watched Australian TV from, I don't know, like the late 90s up until 2010, you 100% would have watched his TV shows.
Okay.
So he basically just, again, none of these shows will have any meaning to you. He didn't create Neighbours.
Okay.
But he created All Saints, Pack to the Rafters, Winners and Losers, and all these other ones, which are just like these massive Australian shows. And he works at like a big network, Australian network TV channel now.
So him being an actor in this, is he not usually an actor? Normally on the creator side of things?
I guess he was back then, but yeah, I now know him more as a creator. Definitely much more as a TV creator. Okay. But it's pretty mind-boggling. Like, that's like, TV royalty right there. In this really, as you said, this kind of jock, kind of alpha male role. He's really frightening in this film.
He is. And he gives this opening speech, doesn't he? And all of his mates are kind of gathered around, and he's like, I'm not going to try an Australian accent, but he's like, we're gathered
here. Give it a go.
No, because I can't. Can you do like a really...
Do you want me to go more Australian?
Yeah, because you're not really Australian enough for me.
He says, "It behoves me on this sad occasion."
That's the one.
"To say a few words about our soon-to-be dear departed mate, Kenny."
I loved that line.
Yeah.
Soon-to-be dearly departed mate, Kenny.
Yeah, I love that. And did you catch as well what he refers to him as? Like the stud line? Do you remember that? He's like one of the greatest studs to ever migrate from Pommyland.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. What does that mean?
Just like, you know what Pommyland is,
No,
right?
what's Pommyland?
That's your place, mate. That's
Is
the
it?
UK, Pommyland.
Is it?
We call you guys Poms.
Am I a pommy?
Yeah, you're a Pommy.
Fucking hell, I didn't even know. I'm a pommy, I didn't know it.
Yeah, I love that speech. So he's basically giving the speech that's almost like a kind of, it feels like a sort of funeral speech,
is, yeah.
Right? Which is what you said before as well, like this, it's a send-off for a friend. And
because I didn't catch it the first time when he says soon to be dearly departed. It was the first time I watched it. I watched it twice. And I was like, dearly departed, mate. And I was like, fuck. And everyone's kind of looking rather sad. And I was like, okay, so is this like a kind of a farewell party for their mate who's just died? And then, but it's not.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what Bucks Party meant either, so I kind of misunderstood the context at the beginning.
Really confusing.
Yeah.
Steve talked about that in the interview about this idea of like what the Bucks Party is. Yeah, the idea that it's like sort of the death of a friend. That's something that still exists now, I think, in the versions of bachelor parties that people go to. Sort of send off into married life.
Yeah.
It was almost the sense that this is the last time that the band of brothers, your mates, are ever going to be able to function, because now there's going to be a woman in the way. And so we humiliate you, we make you suffer for having chosen a woman.
And then he's like, right, take your beers, raise them high. And then what do they do?
How amazing is that reveal?
I loved it.
It's all feels kind of solemn. Then he starts shaking up the beer.
Yeah.
And you're like, what's going on? And what happened?
And then so they're like, raise your beer, raise them high. And then I don't know what the line it says, but they all end up like having their beers and they shake them up and they spray them. And then we get the reveal of Kenny, the groom, locked in a cage, like naked, being sprayed by beer. And then the fun music kicks back in again. And it's all just like really like happy times, and everyone's like spraying him, and he's like, "Oh, come on, guys, like fuck off."
Yeah, there's a freeze frame on his face.
Yeah.
The Bucks Party title comes up.
But again, that
man.
really fun music, and then it's like, we're in for a good old ride here. Everyone's loving it, apart from Kenny.
Yeah. So at this point, it's, as you say, it's kind of impossible to know where it's going to go at this point. It's being presented as this very kind of fun sort of thing. We're all having beers. But the fact that he's in a cage, Kenny's locked away in a cage, it kind of is like, oh no, where's this going?
And that's like the thing that kept kind of going through my head was like, he's literally in a cage in the middle of the sun in Australia.
Yeah.
Like that's like the best way to get heat stroke, right?
Sure. And actually, Steve talked a little bit about this location. So it's called Rollystone. Yeah, disused quarry in Western Australia. No one was there, obviously, so they could just shoot in total privacy. But it was ridiculously hot.
The location was fabulous. It was away from prying eyes. We took over the whole quarry. It was very, very hot. I don't know what it is in centigrade, but it was about 112 degrees in the shade, and of course there wasn't any shade apart from the shade that we created, the tents, and the inviting crystal clear water that was in the quarry was banned to all the actors until they'd finished the day, but they had to compete with a family of Dugites who swam in it as well. It was absolutely right for what we wanted to do.
Yeah, you can feel how hot it is just watching it, right?
And even so, it's in like this like metal cage, right? So the cage itself would have been like fucking boiling.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, that role seemed like would have been horrible to do. Do not envy Kenny.
Yeah. So after we've got the titles, we kind of get some more sort of fun stuff, right? They're playing cricket with beer bottles, and it's just intense drinking.
Yeah.
Drinking. Yeah, we meet David, who's
Is he the bride's brother?
Yeah, the bride's brother, who's also the best man, and he's very different from everybody else, right?
He's kind of essentially like the voice of reason amongst all the apes, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got the feeling, I didn't ask Steve this, but I felt like maybe this was sort of him, because he talks about his own experiences with Bucks parties, which we can talk about a bit later. And to me, Steve Jodrell seemed like obviously very intelligent guy, a very nice guy. I kind of imagined that this David character, maybe he had more in common with him
right?
than as you said, the apes. Yeah. So yeah, he's there. He seems kind of restrained, gentle, and the big alpha male Ron comes up to him with a beer. Yeah. Get this into you.
Yeah. It's almost like a montage, if you will, of just them just having fun, and all lots of drinking. But it's almost like a group of like apes fighting over the beer tap, and they're all shouting and cheering and pouring out these beers. It's very intense. But at this point, I was thinking, what age are these people supposed to be? But saying not that they're supposed to be, but even if you look like people, from the 70s, regardless of country, they look a lot older than the people now of that age, right?
Sure, yeah.
And all the people there, they're all kind of like kind of fat. They've all got mustaches and like they're balding and they're big. Like, I was like, are they like in their 40s? I don't know what age they are or what age they're supposed to be.
My guess is that they're all in their 20s,
right?
Because the cast of this film, other than Bevan Lee, the guy playing Ron, I think they were all students. So they were cast out of, I guess, the university that Steve worked in. He talked a little bit about the casting for this. So they're not professional actors, which is really impressive because they really give amazing performances. Because they're all students, I would assume that they're all in their 20s.
Right.
But yeah, as you say, when you look at people back then, they do look older.
Yeah.
they all look like they're in their 40s.
That's it.
But I guess that's also Australia as well. The sunscreen is a relatively new invention, and being in the sun all the time does age you as well. Yeah,
I don't know about even looking at Australian people and American people, everyone just looks a lot old. Like you see those like Americans, Australians when they're like 16, they look like 30. They got like massive beards, and we were back in England like fucking I just got my first pube come through.
But yeah, it's this whole sequence. It's just intense, right? Like they're just drinking like crazy. The dialogue's amazing. There's the line, "We're gonna get pissed up to our eyeballs with no one to bother us," because they're in this quarry. It's great. We see one of the drunken guys sort of dancing around, and he falls into the water in the quarry, which I feel like is kind of preempting something that's going to happen later in the film as well. Yeah.
And then is that the moment we cut to Kenny back in the cage?
Yes.
So I was a little bit confused with this cut. So we see some guy kind of fall into the quarry, and then we cut to Kenny in the cage wringing out a shirt. So I was like, wait, did they throw Kenny in the quarry? I was like, wait, no. Because it's not. So I wonder, is he like wringing out his sweat, or why is he wringing out a shirt?
That's a good question. I didn't even think about that, to be honest.
Because it cuts him jumping in the water and then Kenny wringing out the water from a shirt, so I couldn't quite get the context there.
Was it actually Kenny wringing it out?
Yeah, he was in the cage wringing it out. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I had to rewind to see if it was Kenny that went in the quarry, but it wasn't.
No, he's still locked up at this point. Yeah.
So I wonder, is it just like his sweat that's accumulated in this thing? It could be. I don't know, but I wonder if you had the answer to that.
No, don't have that one. I'll interview Steve again and ask him.
I've got more questions.
Just about this one shot. But yeah, David comes over to talk to Kenny at this point. And both of these guys seem much more restrained, much more normal than the other guys, right?
Yeah.
The kind of more gentle, intelligent sort of guys. And we see at this point as well, like Kenny's like, he's not drinking anything as well. He's like, at this point, he's like dead sober.
Yeah.
And just locked away in this cage.
Yeah, that's not a very fun bachelor party, is it?
It's a nightmare. Absolutely.
Like they're all having fun. He's just sitting in this hot fucking cage. No food, no drink.
Then after this, we meet our other kind of outsider character, Mickey or Michelangelo, who
they dub the Italian.
Yeah, so they call him a pretty offensive word as well. We hear the word dago. I don't know if you use that in the UK.
No.
It's not even a slur that I think would even get used today in Australia, but basically it's like a anti-Italian slur, and they're pushing this guy around and take him over to the beer keg. This Mickey guy and just like drown him in the beer.
They're like waterboarding him essentially, like flooding him with this beer.
Yeah.
And all the other guys are loving it. I think they're having a great time, and the Italian is like, oh!
Yeah.
But again, there's that really like fun, happy music playing on top. So it's always like, and it's the feeling I felt through the entirety of this film. It's like I'm supposed to be enjoying this because the mood is set so you feel that, but what you're actually watching is not fun.
For sure, yeah. And that's sort of, you're spot on with that, I think, and that's kind of part of the genius of this film, where you're like, oh, it's fun, but wait, what am I watching? Yeah. Like, all the tone of it is very, like, upbeat, right? Yeah, and so David and Kenny are watching this happen to Mickey, kind of not really doing anything about it. They're sort of just observing this. And David mentions that Julie, Kenny's wife-to-be, sent him there to protect him, basically.
Right.
Yeah. And Ron comes over getting all intense. They're like, oh, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah.
Sort of feeling this tension between them already. And then we get one of the best sequences in Australian cinema history, I would say.
Is this actually a thing in Australia, or a stag party thing?
Well, do you want to describe what happens first?
At first, I was really unsure of what I was witnessing, because all of a sudden we cut to people walking very strangely.
Yeah.
And it's almost like crab walks. They kind of clench where their legs are kind of split apart, and they're kind of like shuffling along the asphalt or the sand.
The introductory shot of this is so confusing, right? So you've got like a shot between a guy's legs, and then you're seeing another guy, as you said, like waddling along.
Yeah. But everyone's in like these like tiny little like tidy whities, and shuffling along with these really kind of uncomfortable looks on their faces. And like you said, lots of very close-up crotch shots. I was like, what the hell is happening now? And apparently it's essentially a drinking game. You have to put what are they putting up there? A coin, is it?
So yeah, the game is called 2 bob.
Right.
So 2 shillings at this time, 2 shillings. Up your ort sport.
There's a very famous and quite funny sequence called Two Bob Up Your Ort Sport, which is a game that I saw played at a bucks party where the men would stick a 20-cent piece up their bum, in the crack of their bum, hold it together with their bum cheeks, waddle in a crouching position over a glass, and try and drop it in the glass. If they didn't drop it in the glass, they had to drink a glass of beer. That was the game. I thought that was the most amazing thing I'd seen at a bucks party, and I'd seen quite a few. So that features very heavily in the film, and in fact is a nice piece of comedy relief. I hope I'm not going to now educate a new generation of Australian men to go out and recreate this game.
I didn't actually catch the name of the game when I watched it because it was just too Australian for me.
Right, too Australian for
and
you.
Also, like, the term "2 bob," it's not used in Australia anymore, so I had to ask Steve for the details on this. But yeah, 2 bob up your ort sport. Do you call people sport in the UK?
No.
It's like, g'day, sport, how you doing?
No, we don't.
Yeah, so
I think that's an Australian thing, isn't it?
Yeah, very Australian term. So yeah, 2 bob, 2 shilling, up your ort as in zero, as in butthole.
Right. I'm glad you're here to explain this. There's a lot of stuff that I just didn't catch.
Yeah. Well, I had to get Steve to explain this to me too.
What's an ort?
Oh, the whole concept.
Oh, right.
and whether this was a real thing. And yeah, Steve told me this was a real thing that he witnessed.
From his own personal experience.
Yeah.
That's pretty great. Yeah, it's bizarre. I've never seen anything like that.
And the shots are so intense. As it goes on, we sort of get this montage of it happening, and the shots start to like sort of go underneath, and we're sort of seeing the coins fully up the butt and getting dropped into the glass. It's so intense.
It is quite great, but it's also very homoerotic, they're all down in their tidy whities putting things up their bums and then playing and making it into a drinking game. There's I don't know, this is completely irrelevant, but I remember a Dave Chappelle sketch, and he's always like, you can't do anything with white people, or you can't fall asleep when you're around white people because they always do some kind of weird gay shit to you. And I always remember like these weird, like all the men getting naked and putting things up their bums.
And yeah, like Steve, I asked him, like, is this film based on real experiences that you had? And he goes into that detail, and it was based on reality. That's, kind of why he made this.
I am fascinated by the Australian male psyche. I was particularly fascinated by the willingness with which groups of men were prepared to give up their personal integrity and values in favour of a mob mentality, that they would do the kind of things as a group that they would never do as a single person. Most of the film is based on my experiences. Obviously, the dramatic moments at the end aren't, but most of the rest of them. The recipe generally was humiliating the groom in whatever way you could. Some were, left naked, tied to street poles, things like that. But that was part of the ritual.
And that's what the theme of this is, right?
Yeah.
The willingness of all these guys, if you had them separate from their mates by themselves, they wouldn't do the stuff that they do in this film. And it's kind of this sort of mob mentality kind of thing, right? Which I think is something that, is not just Australian. I think it's, universal.
Yeah.
But it is really something I saw a lot growing up in Australia, like in school, just this kind of, not necessarily at bucks parties, but just in general, when you get a bunch of very blokey Australian men together, it's dangerous.
It is. It's like everyone's trying to belittle the other one, trying to put themselves up high. Everyone's trying to be the alpha, and it is kind of like a bit like that, like you said, mob mentality, but very just like primitive.
Yeah. And I like the way Steve described this as, it's the last time the band of brothers are going to be together, and like a woman's getting in the way. they're going to make you suffer for the choice that you've made.
Yeah.
So you've got this intense mob mentality plus this kind of cruelty, you know? It's so... It's full on, yeah.
It is. And then, obviously, we've just had a lot of people chugging lots of beers because they couldn't drop the coins in the glass. And all that beer has to go somewhere, right? So what do?
Oh my god, yeah. Holy moly, that
was very upsetting.
I think that is the scene where maybe you realized why I chose this film to talk about.
Yeah, I was not expecting that. And it was so gross.
Yeah.
But kind of, I couldn't see it coming. I really didn't want that to happen.
Yeah, but basically they've drunk all this beer.
Yeah.
And as you say, they have to let it out. So they surround Kenny in the cage and just start pissing all over him. It is truly grim.
Mate.
Truly grim.
If my friends did that to me, I would disown everyone right there and then. What the fuck? A bunch of your mates pissing on you while you're locked in a cage? That's so horrible.
Yeah, like, I guess I'm just not much of a macho kind of guy, but I have friends that I've met that, like, used to do stuff where, like, they would piss on each other.
What?
I'm actually not. I'm not shitting
wild.
you. So I had friends that if they went to the beach or like somewhere with water, as a joke, they would piss on each other because they're about to go into the water. But it's like, but why? I still wouldn't want to be pissed on, even if I could wash it straight off. So this really reminded me of that as well, because they all piss on him and then they just dive into the quarry after that.
Yeah. But he's still locked in the cage.
Yeah, he's not getting.
So that's it. They're
him.
fine. They've relieved themselves, covered Kenny in piss. They're like, I'm going to go for a swim now, and so they're all like frolicking in the quarry, all completely naked.
Yeah.
Frolicking around.
You know what I loved as well watching this? I was really interested to know what the atmosphere on the set was like, because it is really dark, obviously, and that pissing scene is the best example of it's really fucked up what's happening. But apparently it was an extremely fun set.
Oh yeah,
it was a fun set. The two outsiders, David and Mick, were actually segregated from the rest of the boys. I wince at some of the dialogue that I gave those poor performers. But where the dialogue really works is with the main revelers, the boys themselves. They've got some great stuff to do, and they do it with such enormous gusto. They had so much fun. Remember, we're talking, except for Bevan Lee, who played Ron, with the exception of Bevan, the rest of them were amateurs, and some of them had never acted before at all, let alone on film. But they just threw themselves into it.
And I think that's why it's so real. It feels so real, because they are just kind of going for it.
And it looks like they're drinking real beer as well.
Yeah, surely they couldn't be, though. Like,
but, I mean, they got the kegs and everything. I mean, I feel like real beer is easier to source than fake, real-looking beer, So I'm sure they would have had a few pints whilst they're out in the quarry and, had a laugh whilst doing it.
Oh, God. Yeah, but apparently it was a very fun set, despite the content.
So they're all frolicking in the quarry, and you have the two voices of reason, Dave and Mickey, and I think it's David who's just like, I think he makes the very valid point of what are they actually celebrating here, because it certainly is not the wedding.
Yeah, absolutely not the wedding, and basically celebrating his, in their words, last days of freedom, right? And I think he said it at the start, but like the point that they're gonna remember this, like he's gonna remember this more than the wedding. Yeah, and these are his mates, and Julie is just gonna be his wife, which is. Yeah.
It kind of goes back to that. I don't know if this is a thing in Australia, but there was that age-old saying like "bros before hoes," or was that ever a thing in Australia?
Oh, yeah. I think
your mates always come first.
We say in Australia, we say mates before dates.
Yeah,
but
so similar ideas.
Totally, still a thing. I wonder, because I'm however old I am now. What am I? 36 or something? I forgot my age. But I don't know. I'd be interested to know what it's like now for young men, because I have young nephews and they're into sports, they're like typical.
They don't piss on each other.
Yeah, I don't think they do this sort of stuff anymore. I think that maybe the world has changed a little bit, but I don't know. Maybe it does still exist. It's yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I'm sure it exists in some dark corners of the globe. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, maybe things have changed, and I think also the young men growing up now are a lot more in touch with their feminine sides.
Sure,
I think that's a big thing. So maybe you don't have so many of those ape-like alpha male dudes who kind of like in this piss on each other and lock each other in cages and just try to humiliate their mates as much as possible. I'm sure it's still a thing to a certain degree, but
yeah, I'm sure it exists in a way. But yeah, as you said, I think maybe kids now are a little bit better educated, more in touch with, as you say, the feminine side, or
the thing which this kind of reminded me of in a way, although this coming along much later, is those there's like early 2000s like American Pie films. This was almost like a prelude to those in a way. It's like that same kind of thing. In those American Pie films, they're just trying to like fuck with the groom and cause as much chaos as possible.
Yeah.
Those films have aged terribly. I don't know if you've watched them recently.
Yeah, like American Pie, it's they do stuff that's like criminal, right? Like sex crimes.
Right.
It's insane.
Yeah. But it's almost that similar mentality, though, isn't it? And those kind of films, including this one, these American Pie films, those early 2000 like teen comedies where it's just like a bunch of bros who take their mate away from his girlfriend for a weekend and get him absolutely fucked up. Those kind of films don't get made anymore because it's not really of the times, and people don't find it funny.
Yeah.
And it, like you said, it's wrong. It's not kind of acceptable by today's standards.
Totally. Yeah.
But this film is still funny.
I think though the difference between something like this and American Pie, it's quite a funny comparison. Yeah. But like the difference between this is a critique, whereas American Pie is a celebration.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
I don't think American Pie is critiquing.
Yeah, not meaning to compare the two, but I mean that whole like bro like
it's the same
thing.
energy.
Yeah, it's same energy, and that kind of energy you don't really see that much in films anymore.
Well, I even noticed that like maybe I think about 10 years ago, when I was a high school teacher, I remember. So I taught year 11s and 12s, and they were so different to what it was like for me in high school. So when I was in high school, the sporty jockey guys, like the kind of guys that were in this film, although younger looking, less mustaches and balding men, like they were kind of like, the rulers of the school, right? And that had changed dramatically like 10 years ago when I was teaching. There were still sporty kids, but the jock didn't seem to exist. Like that archetype was kind of gone, and the cool kids were like the artistic kids.
Right.
Like, God damn it! Like I should have been going to school at this point in time. And it felt much more. Yeah, it was very different. It felt much more supportive and less cruel. I don't know if that was just that high school, but yeah, it felt very different to my experience.
That sounds a bit more accurate to what things like now. This is going maybe a bit too far off topic, but whilst I was on the plane going back to England, I was just watching some whatever dumb films I could find. There was a film it was Jonah Hill and someone, and they kind of go undercover in a high school to find some drugs or something. They're policemen. They have to go undercover and like pose as high school students or something.
It's him and Channing Tatum, right?
I think that's right, yeah. And they kind of go in with their old school mentality, and it's like you got to take down the biggest jock, and then you're going to become like the alpha of the school, and if not, you're going to get fucking bullied. And they go in the first day, fucking floor the guy who they think is the alpha. And all the guys are like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, and everyone's just like really at peace and, reading poetry in the courtyard, and the popular guys are the artistic guys. And it is very different to how things were back in the day.
21 Jump Street.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Right.
I remember watching that back then and being like, this is very accurate to what it's like now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember he's like there's another scene where he's like wearing the backpack on one shoulder to be cool. And like, why are you doing that?
Just
put it on both. It's bad for your back.
That's right. I remember that was a thing, right? Yeah. This is going back to primary school. But it's like, you can't do both straps. That's fucking social suicide.
I blame my bad posture on that.
For being too cool in school. with your one strap.
Oh, I was super cool.
Yeah?
No, not really.
Did you do the no strap?
No straps. All right, so
Let's get back into it.
yeah, so basically we've had this kind of bit where they're all swimming about. Yeah, David and Mickey are commenting on it, and then we're into a little bit of a barbecue.
That's right.
Cooking some. Do you say snags?
I don't know what snags is.
So we say snags in Australia for sausages.
No way.
Cooking some snags on the barbecue.
Snags.
Yeah, and they're
That's wild.
yeah cooking the sausages, and David comes over and wants to get some of them for Kenny.
Yeah.
He hasn't eaten anything, but the guys cooking him are like, no. Ron doesn't want Kenny eating anything.
There's a line, he goes, I wouldn't if I were you, mate.
Yeah.
And it's like a really like sinister deliverance. I was like, fuck, like
That
it
is-
takes a very dark tone. I wouldn't if I were you.
That is so Australian. That kind of, how do you describe it? That kind of, hey mate, yeah, you better watch out, mate. Like we're very
It's kind of like advice, but it's like almost a warning, a
And
threat.
The way that this is talked about a lot, but we say mate in a very threatening way. The word mate is used like, like, oh, have you seen Animal Kingdom? That's a great Australian film. So that has Ben Mendelsohn in it, who you would have seen. He's in like Marvel films now.
I don't watch those either.
He was in a Star Wars movie. I think
I don't watch those either.
he was in Rogue One or something, and he never fully is able to get rid of his Australian accent.
Right.
So he's sort of like, oh, g'day, Darth Vader, how you doing? Like he still sounds like Ben Mendelsohn. But in Animal Kingdom, there's a bit where he's like interrogating someone, and he's like, oh mate, you didn't go to the cops, did you, mate? And just it's so like tense, but he's like saying mate constantly, and it's, if you read it like written down, it sounds kind of friendly, but it's so threatening in its delivery, and that is Australian aggressiveness in a passive aggressiveness in a nutshell.
I love it because it's like advice and a threat at the same time.
Exactly, yeah. And so David still takes the sausages over, tries to give one to Kenny, but Ron comes over and kind of slaps it out of his hand. And he says, do not feed the animals.
Yeah, he's like, what are you doing, mate?
What are you trying to do, Dave? Spoil Kenny's chances.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
Kenny's not supposed to be eating, mate. Didn't you read the sign? Do not feed the animals.
Oh, come on. Don't be so childish.
Yeah. He says, can't you read the sign? Don't feed the animals. That's my Australian accent.
Good, not bad.
And I think it was that point where I was really questioning Ron's motives, because he's obviously there to be the friend to celebrate Kenny's wedding, but he's got a real like sinister atmosphere around him, and I didn't know, like, is he actually Kenny's friend, or is he there to like completely just fucking mess with him and destroy him into nothing?
Yeah,
it was a really sinister role, and he does it perfectly as well.
He's really quite scary. Like and you can see all the other characters sort of falling in line because he's the alpha, right?
Yeah,
and he's totally in control of this whole. Even though it's madness, right? This kind of crazy mob going nuts, but he's controlling everything that's happening. Oh, and then we really take an extraordinarily dark turn from this point. So we've had word earlier in the film that a stripper is going to be coming. Yeah. So one of the guys brings the stripper, drives the stripper into the quarry. But in the car as well, it's not just the stripper, but also Julie, the wife-to-be, and another friend. I think it's the girlfriend of one of the other characters, Di is her name. And Ron's kind of annoyed that they've come along. So basically they're there because they're kind of scared as to what's happening to Kenny.
Right.
They want to know what's going on. And Ron's like, oh, we're just going to have to get him out of the way. And they drag the wife-to-be, Julie, and their friend, and they lock her in a car.
And again, all the time, this very fun music playing on top.
Yeah.
So it's all just like, oh, this is fun. They've just locked these people in a car in the middle of a quarry in the middle of the summer.
Man.
And that's when they let Kenny out the cage, right? And that's the first time he gets out of the cage.
Yeah. Oh, wow. It's so full on, this stuff. So I also love the guy who's bringing the stripper. He keeps referencing how the strippers getting brought over to see the grubs. They keep referring to the other guys as grubs. Do you ever use grubs?
No.
Grubs is like a gross person, right?
Right.
Oh man, it's so Australian. It's great. But yeah, so they're getting Kenny primed up.
That's right.
As they say.
So they've got him like held down to the ground. He's kind of stripped down to his undies, and they're approaching him, and they're all kind of singing a funeral march, right? They're like dun 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 dun, and one of them has a razor, which is kind of like reflecting the sun. It's like glittering in the sun, and they're approaching him with this razor, and they're essentially going to shave him, ready for the big night. But it's again this very simple. They're singing the funeral march, for fuck's sake, and he's like, "Oh, come on, lad, like fuck off!" Like, but we don't actually see anything. But then we cut back to the bride to be and her mate locked in the car, and all the grubs, if you will.
Yeah,
they kind of approach the car very kind of solemn, and they're like, "Julie, like, I'm sorry, like, there's been." We were only having a laugh, but
we were just shaving his short and curlies.
Short and curlies. But there was an accident. And they have a tissue with something wrapped inside. And again, it's this very dark atmosphere. And they're like, oh, fuck it, they've lopped off one of his nuts. But at this point, I was still really questioning what Ron's motives were and whether he was like a good guy or he was actually just out to fuck with Kenny, like more than we're actually led to believe. And so they have this tissue and they throw it at the bride-to-be. And what's inside?
Not a penis, luckily.
Thank goodness.
But one of the sausages.
Barbecue sausage. One of the snags.
Yeah. I love this part, like the aftermath of this is just like perfect.
It is.
It's so... It really captures that kind of, insane mob mentality kind of thing where one of the guys grabs the sausage.
Yeah.
It feels very improvised, this bit. And he's putting it at his crotch and he's just masturbating the sausage, like, really intensely. Yeah. Then he goes over to another guy and starts trying to bum him with the sausage. And it's just... it's...
And they're all laughing. The happy music kicks back in. There's like, and there's some guys coming to like fillet the sausage, and all the guys are laughing, and the bride to be is like, "Oh, you fuckers," you know.
But even though as you say, it's got that fun, feeling, but it also feels very insidious underneath all that.
I kind of felt like the bride to be were in real danger just being around that massive group of intense, like, testosterone fueled men.
Yeah, it's as soon as I think, you're so right. Like when Julie and the friend arrive, it adds a tension. Because you're genuinely scared of what's gonna happen to them.
Yeah.
So then they continue to get Kenny primed. So he hasn't eaten anything at this point. He hasn't drunk anything, but he gets his first drink now.
So that's it. So they give him a beer christening, don't they? They have the massive...
huge jug
of beer. They do the little cross on his forehead, pour one down his pants as well. And apparently he has to drink like 4 pitchers, is it?
They feed him one and then they're like, oh, only 4 to go.
Yeah.
Guess 5 altogether.
With no food.
Massive jugs of beer.
So he's completely fucked. And that's when we cut to the stripper scene, right? So now we're at night time.
Actually, just before there's one just small thing that I thought was just such a great little touch before we get to that stripper bit that really sums up the lunacy of this, where it's nighttime and there's one of the guys, I think he was one of the guys cooking the sausages, he's just like puking, just intensely vomiting, and this other guy was so great, this bit, so he's just vomiting like hunched over, and this other guy is just standing there laughing. And it's so Australian.
That's very real, isn't it?
Yeah, just this guy puking, this other guy just pissing himself laughing. So he finishes puking, the other guy, and then just looks up. He's like, oh, go on, give us another beer. But his face is kind of strained and it's not fun. It's just full on. He's just having that beer because he has to.
Hey, you better now, mate?
Yeah. Give us another beer.
It was such a small moment, but it was such a masterful touch as the kind of build up to that stripper scene. Yeah.
So then we're at night. The night, if you will.
Yeah.
And the strippers there. She gets introduced. She's kind of like revealed, like first behind a curtain or a bed sheet, if you will. She's kind of dancing. You can see her silhouette, and all the men are just getting really rowdy and chanting
and stuff. Yeah,
getting really fucking hyped up for this stripper. They drop the sheet. She comes out. You know, she's doing her dance around a campfire. Everyone's fucking loving it. They're losing them. It's like they'd never seen a woman before.
It's quite frightening.
Yeah. But really, again, very ape-like. They're just chanting, screaming, shouting, drinking a lot. So the other guy also gets up, starts dancing as well.
That's like, I think that's the poster of the film. It's someone sort of bending over, pulling their underwear down and looking back. And I think it's this other guy who, this mustachioed ape-like guy who's just stripping at the same time and just loving it.
And meanwhile, so Kenny, he's just done 4 or 5 pictures. He's
catatonic.
Completely, but he's not even conscious. But he's wearing like this bald cap. So they put this bald cap with glasses thing on him. So he's kind of looking really dumb and goofy. Again, going back to, you have to humiliate the guy as much as possible. So he's completely out, dressed up in this ridiculous costume, not even conscious, while all his mates are just having the time of their lives.
It just like really suddenly gets intense, which I really like the way this was cut together. So, you know, we're getting the stripping, everyone's excited, and then it just really suddenly cuts to all of the guys grabbing the stripper and throwing her down on the ground and holding her down. It's just such a sudden, intense cut. And yeah, the film really gets incredibly messed up and incredibly dark at this point. They pick up Kenny, who's totally basically comatose, like slipping in and out of consciousness. He's got the bald wig thing on. What do you call it? Bald cap. And they, hold him up, put him on top of her, and she's being held down, and they're just thrusting him like in and out, which they're saying like in and out as they're doing it. Basically forcing him to rape her, basically. Yeah. I should point out as well, Steve did say, while a lot of the things in this are based on things he's seen, this was not, obviously.
That's
this
good
stuff
to know.
And some other stuff at the end didn't happen. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, that's, like you said, it was so sudden, and it's such an upsetting scene, because the stripper's screaming the whole time.
It's awful.
Kenny's unconscious, being forced to rape this girl, and as always, the rest of them are having the time of their lives, laughing and chanting, shouting in, out, and just to top it off, to make things all the worse, the bride-to-be, hears all the commotion, what's going on, sees her soon-to-be husband raping a stripper, and David, the voice of reason, he's just like, oh, it's okay,
Yeah,
like,
he's just sort of,
kind of helplessly watching. They both, because he's the weakling out of all of them, so there's no way he could even try to stop them.
Mick tries to stop it. So the Michelangelo Mick, he comes over, tries to stop, and he just sort of gets pushed away. That's as much as he can do in this situation against all these horrific apes.
And that's a very long scene as well. That rape scene is very long.
Yeah, it's incredibly intense, and I think it's just this ramping up of kind of madness, right, that's going on.
So Mickey comes back to David. David goes, what's going on? Did you hear the line that he said?
No, what was
just before the last line of the scene before it cuts, Mickey goes, it's all right, mate, Kenny's just tainted all over her.
Oof. Grim. I did hear that, but I actually didn't
and then David goes, oh God, and then it cuts.
Yeah. Oh, horrendous. So then we're at the next morning. They've taken Julie home at this point. Julie and her friend are home. I guess they've taken the stripper home as well. And these kind of shit lads, these kind of rotten guys, they're really furious with Mick and David, especially Mick, I guess, for nearly ruining things. And Mick and David are kind of sleeping side by side in their sleeping bags. And did you catch the line where they're like commenting on them?
No.
And one of them's like, oh, they'll be up each other's bums soon.
Yeah. Do you notice how palsy they're getting?
be up each other's bums soon.
If not already.
A great and horrible line. But yeah, they want to get revenge on Mick for apparently nearly ruining the rape of the stripper. And they head on over to his sleeping bag, tie a rope around the legs, so he's still in the sleeping bag. They kind of like tighten the top of the sleeping bag. They
fasten it shut, so he's kind of essentially locked in.
And they attach the end of the rope to one of the cars and start driving around, dragging him along. And David tries to stop it, and the car kind of swerves, and the Mick in the sleeping bag just goes flying off into the quarry, into the water, really violently smashing into the water.
It's like very in slow-mo from a lot of different angles. You see him like falling, and it's very upsetting, very intense.
I asked Steve about the scene because it looks so dangerous. And obviously there was like a dummy in the bag, but he did tell me quite an intense story about something that happened in this part.
Probably the most dangerous stunt was when the boys decide to take Mick for a run in the morning. They tie a rope to the end of his sleeping bag and fasten the rope around the dune buggy and then tear around the circle of cars. Of course, we had a dummy in the bag. That wasn't the problem. But as the car took the dummy in the sleeping bag around, it jammed underneath the wheels of one of the stationary cars. The rope pulled very, very quickly around the bar, and I nearly severed the leg of one of the actors who was sitting in the back. Fortunately, the actor who was driving came to a complete stop, and we were able to get away with it without any real danger. But it was an abject lesson to me in the need for safety. But that was long before we had stuntmen and safety men. Well, we had stuntmen, but we didn't have safety men.
This is mid-70s, right? And Australian cinema was pretty wild back then. Do you know Brian Trenchard Smith?
No.
He's like a really amazing kind of director of sort of exploitation films in the 70s. He did The Man from Hong Kong, which is a banger, and Turkey Shoot, which is amazing, Dead End Drive-In. But I think he was kind of like, he might have been a stuntman as well. And so his films really pushed for extreme kind of stunts and stuff like that. So it is kind of a bit of an Australian tradition in the 70s to
put all the cast in severe danger.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was a very intense scene because as you just tell by watching, it's a very low budget production. So a lot of the actors would have had to some extent go through these ordeals.
Yeah.
And it does not look fun or safe.
For sure.
So yeah, he falls into the quarry, essentially locked in this sleeping bag, and all the people jump out of the car. Everyone jumps in to try and save him, and then Kenny, who's still wearing his ball cap, he's just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, well, you could have killed him. Are you mad? But all the others, it's just a joke, mate.
Yeah, just an accident, just a bit of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, luckily, Mick is not dead. My memory of this film from the first watch was that he did die. So it was kind of a relief watching it again. It's like, okay, he's all right. But it's very dark, this ending. And I think it freeze frames, right? And we get like kind of a return to that line of, he's going to remember this a damn sight longer than his wedding. These are his mates. And very dark and distressing. And then I love the way this is capped off.
The ending is genius.
Yeah, one of truly amazing ending. And this was something he did after the shoot. And, I think Steve Jodrell has complex feelings about this film. So it's his first film. He mentioned a lot that, he doesn't actually want too many people to see it because he's a little bit... not embarrassed, but it's his first film, and he sees all, as we all do, sees all the things he would do differently now. But he also talks about how, when you make your first film, when you don't know exactly what you're doing yet, is kind of the peak of creativity, right?
I have to say, in all honesty, there's a certain kind of creative freedom that comes with ignorance. I think, again, I've often said to film students, the more you learn about something, the more you realize how little you know about it. There's a delightful time in your growth as a filmmaker or a creative person where you don't know what the rules are, so you don't even know what you're breaking. And that is the best time. Because I must admit, if I look back at that project now with the knowledge that I have working 35 years in the business, I would never have made it. I had the arrogance and the ignorance to say, yeah, let's go out and have fun. And we did. We had a lot of fun.
I think he sees this film as his like first child sort of thing, but also has a lot of issues with it. However, he does talk about that wedding photo bit. He is his kind of, it seems like his favorite part of the film, and it is amazing.
Poor Kenny. Poor Kenny. I tell you, mate, he's going to remember this a damn sight longer than the wedding. I mean, these are his mates.
I think in a way that was the perfect kind of end narrative to the Bucks Party, and that was stills from the wedding. There's a certain kind of dark irony to all those wedding pictures after you've seen the film that I'm quite proud of. And again, I just got everybody, I asked them to turn up in their best clobber. I got a church. I got an outfit for my partner who played the wife, and we shot the whole thing in a day, and it was fantastic. I'm really proud of that end sequence. I think it's the icing on the cake.
All right, so that is the film. You asked before about how it was screened, so the length of the film and how it was actually released to the public. When it came out, it was very quickly bought up by a local cinema in Perth in Western Australia. One of the biggest supporters of this film was Anthony Buckley. I mentioned Wake-In-Fright before, so he was the editor of Wake-In-Fright. And he's a legend as well in Australia. He basically, Wake-In-Fright, I think can't remember exactly what happened, but they lost the original, the cut of it, the print.
Right.
So you could only see it in this like really shitty like video sort of print. And that editor basically went on this massive hunt and saved the film, and it got re-released again.
Wow.
So he's like this really amazing kind of legend of Australian cinema, and he loved this film, The Bucks Party, and said it was the most powerful statement about the Australian male since Wake-In-Fright, so kind of compared it to Wake-In-Fright.
Tony Buckley took a print of the film back to Greater Union, which was a film distributor in those days. Greater Union bought it, blew it up to 35 millimeter, and for about 3 months it played as a support feature to films like David Bowie's The Man Who Fell to Earth and shows like that. So it did pretty well.
One example that Steve said is it played before The Man Who Fell to Earth.
No way.
Yeah.
So that's wild.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it also played at a lot of festivals. It won like the Fiction Award at the 78 Sydney Film Festival, Best Shot Fiction at the Australian Film Awards. So when it came out, it had a very successful kind of run as a film.
That's mad. It got all the awards. It got like successful screenings at the box office. Like why did it disappear?
That's what I would like to know. Yeah. I think it's just, I guess it's hard to release something like this. You know, like how would you release it now? Yeah. I was hoping that his Steve's film Shame, I was really hoping that it would be an extra feature on the Blu-ray of that. Unfortunately, it's not. So it's sort of been very popular at the time it was released, and then it's kind of been forgotten. Right. Which is a real shame. It also played at a porn house in Sydney as well, so a porno cinema.
Good stuff.
For a while, it played in a porn house in Sydney. One of the critics of the film said they were never quite sure whether this was a textbook example of how to run a Bucks Party or a satirical examination of the whole institution. I think a lot of the audience agreed with that because there are obviously, I went to two screenings where, there would be men in the audience who were cheering and laughing and really enjoyed it. And I think they missed the point completely. So sometimes I think I failed. But having said that, there was a very strong female audience as well who dragged their men along and told them this is not what they want to lead their lives about.
So how did you feel about the movie?
I thought as a movie it was absolutely great. I loved it. I loved the happy tone that it created, but the sinister deliverance from the characters, because I mentioned a couple of times already, but it's the way that the scenes are laid out and the mood that it's set is that we're supposed to enjoy it. We're supposed to think that we're having a fun time. The way that the music is played, it's all very fun, happy music, and everyone's having fun. But the things we're looking at are not fun. So you're confused about how you should feel about what you're watching. And that was great. And like I said before, Ron, he was so good because he's there as Kenny's friend, but he's not letting Kenny eat anything or drink anything. He's locked him in a cage. It's not what friends do. Yeah. So it was always, I was so confused about how to feel and how to like perceive certain characters. So I thought it was so well written and all the characters were so well done. The actors were incredible in it. I thought it was a fantastic film.
Yeah.
The scenes that were meant to shock, like the stripper scene, the rape scene, and the sleeping bag, they all shocked. And everything was just done so well.
Yeah, I really do. I know that maybe Steve doesn't want it to be more widely seen, but I really wish people could see this film more.
I think people should see this film more.
This is his first film, and it's just genius. I love it. It's a really incredible film. The way that it builds, the intensity, and yeah, I think you made a really good point that it kind of tricks you into thinking it's going to be this very happy sort of time.
Yeah.
And then really kind of pulls the rug out from underneath you. So I do wish this was more widely seen, especially in Australia, because it's such a great piece of, Australian film history.
I like the way that I pretty much didn't understand anything anyone was saying. There's so much Australian slang in there.
Even for me, because this is the 70s, and, people spoke differently in Australia in the 70s. So if you watch Australian films from this time, I don't think you would know any of these titles, but like Alvin Purple. Do you know Dame Edna?
I know that
the character Dame Barry Humphries.
Yeah.
So he's Australian, hugely famous in Australia. He used to play a character called Bazza McKenzie, and that was like this ultra like Aussie kind of character. But when you watch them now, they do speak differently to how Australians speak now. It's quite interesting watching how the accent has kind of changed quite a lot as well. And yeah, a lot of terminology that even I didn't understand.
Right, I'm glad you were there to explain a lot of it to me.
I had to confirm that two bob up the odd sport a few times with Steve.
Yeah. And I like the way that, the stripper scene, essentially the climax of the film, it happens at night. So we literally are building up to the night where it all kind of kicks off and we get the most depraved scene of all. And then we wake up the next morning and it's like the day again. And we think it's like, it's kind of like the storm has passed and we're safe again. But it kind of reels us back in with one of the most awful things ever, the sleeping bag thing. Like we kind of think we're safe. We're out of the woods for a little bit, but it tricks us again. So it's constantly playing with us, and I thought that was quite genius. I wondered about the purpose of why this was made and the runtime, as I mentioned before. It's just such an odd runtime for a movie. It's too long for a short, but it's too short for a feature. It's just, and it seems to be stuck in that in-between place. So for that as well, it's such an oddity.
For sure, yeah.
That I love that this film exists. Yeah, I think it's so great. I love that it exists, and it's criminal that it's not seen and talked about more.
I think the wrongometer is very hard for this movie. So the wrongometer, how wrong the movie is, how shocking it is, or how much it shouldn't exist. This is probably the hardest one. I really have no idea, because I think this film is somewhat of a little mini masterpiece. Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. What do you have any ideas of what you're going to give it? So it's not how good the film is. Let's make that clear.
Yeah.
If I was rating how good it is, I'd give it like a 9 or a 10.
I think on the wrongometer. Visually, when we think about the wrong scenes, if you will.
Yeah.
I think we've covered things a lot more wrong.
Yeah.
But balancing the level of wrongness with the atmosphere that it creates kind of bumps it up quite a lot for me. I was very just like confused about how to feel during whilst watching this.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, I was, when I was watching it, I was thinking maybe a 6-ish, but upon like hearing all your stories and talking with the director and hearing his behind the scenes tidbits, I think I'm going to go for a 7 for this one.
Okay. I'm on the same, I'm feeling the same sort of thing as you, but I'm going to say a 6. Just because it is so well made, it kind of tones the wrongness down a little bit.
I totally understand. Yeah.
But really amazing film, and as we said at the start, do watch it on that website that we mentioned. We'll post up some links when the episode comes out as well. Yeah.
Good stuff. That was great. Bucks Party. Oh, that was so good. I really enjoyed that. Thanks for introducing me to that one. I think that was definitely one of your better recommendations.
Yeah. You should 100% watch Wake-In-Fright as well. That is, in my opinion, the best Australian film ever made.
Okay.
Directed by the guy that made Weekend at Bernie's.
Okay. Know that one.
All right, so what's next time?
Next week. Next
week.
No, not next week.
Come on, mate.
Next time, we are gonna cover, which I think is one of the greatest titles ever. Red spells yes. No, I said that wrong. Red spells red.
Red spells red.
Yeah.
Red spells red.
Yeah, red spells red.
Red spells red.
That's the one. Okay. Now, before we finish, for anyone who is actually keeping up with these and watching the films before we air the episode, this one comes with a warning that you might just want to have a little research into this film, know what you're watching before you watch it, and then judge whether you want to watch it or not based on that. Now, me and Dave, we have an agreement that the film that gets recommended to us, we're not allowed to research. We're not allowed to look up anything, so we have to go in completely blind. So, Dave, you're just going to have to go in blind. Hate me for it later.
Okay.
But for those who are watching, I recommend you just give it a quick search and know what you're getting yourself into.
Wow. I have no idea what to expect. So,
yeah,
this is going to be fun. What country is it from?
Hong Kong.
Okay. Okay, we'll see. All right, nice. And as always, please follow us on Twitter, if Twitter still exists by the time we release this episode. This will be the first episode of 2023.
Will it?
Yeah.
Hey.
Happy New Year.
Oh, Happy New Year to you, Dave.
But yeah, so if Twitter still exists, follow us on SMSW Podcast on Twitter. You can also send us an email if you want at showmesomethingwrong@gmail.com. And yeah, just please share the podcast around. Tell your friends about it. Tell your mum.
Aunties and uncles. There you go.
Anyone else? Just aunties and uncles?
That's them. They love them.
Yeah, please spread the word. And yeah, we'll see you for
Red spells red.